Once, but
Sorry, I only have two headphones and you came into the studio late.
Zeno,
Hey, Mr. C, how you doing?
good. How are you?
I'm alright.
Are you riding tomorrow morning?
I was supposed to. How did you know?
You're not going again.
My bike is still at the shop. So
So it won't be ready.
if it's not
We're
ready by
live on
today,
YouTube.
if it's not ready by today. But why did you ask?
Huh?
Why did you ask? I'm supposed to be traveling tomorrow.
I know.
Oh, okay.
Or something.
Yeah, oh yeah. So I took my bike
Oh, you listen,
just for a tiny little fix, and then they tell me like, ah, okay. You know how it gets into the mechanic now. You can't travel with this thing, so. And the way it is with bikes,
Thank
you have
God
to
you
order
actually
these
found
parts.
out.
Yeah, well, glad they did actually. All right, we're in.
Breakfast. The headlines, the stories, the news. In-depth analysis of national current
Do the
affairs.
intro ourselves.
Okay.
Freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1.
Studio. Here we go.
Good morning, Lagos, and thank you for staying tuned to Smooth 98.1. It's a Friday edition of Freshly Pressed 981. I am Ayo Myro SA,
And I'm a Zeno Appeal.
and it's time for us to go through some of the national news headline stories for today. We have some big stories here, and to do justice to analysis to these stories, we have Fumi Odude. Morning, Fumi.
Good morning.
Good to have you. And we have Waji. Morning, Waji.
Morning, Ayo, morning, Azino.
Hey, morning, Wadi.
Morning for me, morning, Mr. C, and good morning, Lagos.
Waji is at the corporate MC, that's corporate to the K, and we have Mr. C. Morning, Mr. C.
Good morning, Ian. Good morning, Zeno.
Hey,
good
good morning,
morning,
Mr. C.
Fumi. Good morning, Waji. Good morning, Lagos. Stay safe. Coronavirus is here.
Yeah.
All right, okay, so Mr. C is at D Mr. C on Twitter, and we are at Smooth981 FM on Twitter. Use the hashtag freshly pressed 981.
The greetings this morning reminds me of waking up at my household, growing up in a family of 7. As the youngest, I had to greet every single person
my.
first. So if we're all gathered, I had to, daddy do and mommy do, and everybody else do all the way.
Oh,
That was tiring.
and do what everyone wouldn't survive.
No, that's disrespectful.
Okay.
I see Mr. C nodding his head there. Mr. C, we're coming to you with our very first story, and rightly that it is for you because we're talking Amode this time. Do remember now you want to send in messages, would like you guys to do so. 0809 4440981 if you want to give your contribution to the story. Also, you want to hashtag like freshly pressed 981 up on Twitter. So 820 buses, Ambode loses bid to stop probe, heads for appeal court. Ambode has consistently said that he did not breach budgetary approval regarding the purchase of 820 public buses. Justice Adesanya held that the ad hoc committee set up for the investigation of the Ambode is in fact a or rather fact-finding committee and not an indictment. But the story is much more larger than that. Mr. C, if you'll take us through.
Okay, so in the last administration where Governor Ambode was in charge, 820 buses were purchased by the state government under its bus reform project. Fast forward a few months after he leaves, and the State House of Assembly decided to investigate the said purchase, alleging that it flouted excellent laws and regulations, specifically that there was no budgetary approval for the purchase of the buses. So they set up an ad hoc committee and invited the governor to appear before it to shed more light and explain the circumstances surrounding the purchase of the said buses. The governor instead filed a suit at the state high court seeking two injunctions: one, restraining the ad hoc committee from inviting him to provide details on the said purchase, and two, an order of court preventing them from accusing him of illegally or improperly buying the said buses. Now, the State House of Assembly filed a preliminary objection through its lawyer, stating that his suit was preemptive and it was an attack on its legislative powers, given the doctrine of separation of powers that we execute here. The court, in a considered ruling, said yes, that the ad hoc committee hadn't made a finding, and under sections 1 to 8 of the Constitution, it was entitled to investigate matters within its purview, and that because no finding had been made, the governor's suit was premature, and that they just want to investigate, and he should They didn't really say that, but implied in the ruling was he should cooperate with them.
So what happens after a fact finding?
Now, after a
Investigation.
fact-finding investigation, certain decisions, they reach certain conclusions. And if someone is found guilty, for example, in this case, if he were to be found guilty, they may then decide to prosecute him or decide to apply whatever sanctions they deem necessary. But now he's appealed saying that the High Court got it wrong and that under Section 36, he's entitled to fair hearing, and he believes that he will not get a fair hearing with the legislative state house of assembly. But here's the truth of the matter. If he doesn't want them to investigate it, who's going to investigate it? And two, which is crucial, if you have nothing to hide, why are you unprepared or why are you reluctant to appear before them? You have documents. Present your side of the story. If you have to go there with your lawyers, fine. Because he claims on the pages of the newspapers and on media, social media, that he hasn't done anything wrong. Fantastic. Head there and prove your innocence.
Well, thank you, Mr. C. I think we might as well just move on to our very next story, which is a very crucial one at this point in time from the Premium Times newspaper. Nigeria records first coronavirus case. Now, Lagos. This is a very interesting find here because it was sort of back and forth from before until it was confirmed. Nigeria has recorded its first case of coronavirus after an Italian national tested positive to the virus. He came in from Milan. He entered the country on the 25th of February. He's currently being observed at the Lagos State Biosecurity facilities in Lagos State Teaching Hospital. So this raises a lot of questions, and I were talking about this morning from earlier about the fact that he came in through our borders. What have we done regarding rather the airports? What have we done in that regard? On inside of Business Express, there was also talk about the fact that Nigeria is a bit slow at this point regarding how we're going about the issue, and then the fears that it also raises where it comes to these documents of people who perhaps might have been on the same flight with this person. Can we find them? Can we do what other nations have done to quarantine these people or at least observe them? Questions are myriad. But you take us through the story, Mr. C. Once again, it's yours.
Okay, so sadly, Lagos, we're here now. Most of us had earnestly hoped that the coronavirus wouldn't make its way to these shores. Unfortunately, it's here now. An Italian national entered Nigeria on the 25th of February from Milan for a brief visit. On the 26th, he fell ill and he's currently at the Lagos State Biosecurity facilities for isolation and testing. Now, it begs a question. A crucial question needs to be asked. Presumably, he came in through the airport. Presumably.
Yeah.
Do we not? So the question really is to the authorities. Do we have equipment at the airport to check for signs of the coronavirus, since we already know what the symptoms are like? Two, the people who were on the plane with him, do we have the details, all the details, where they're staying? Can they be easily reached? Three, everyone who's come into contact with this Italian, have they been contacted? Have they been quarantined?
Can I?
And one more thing, Wachi, before you come in. He came in on the 25th. He fell in on the 26th. During that period, where was he? What was he doing?
Who was he with?
Who was he with?
All right.
So there's so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, so just to respond to the sequence of questions you asked, it's yes to all those things. So first and foremost, we do have the equipment to test for high temperatures at the airport, not necessarily the coronavirus itself, but if you begin to show symptoms, the airport will check that. That's number one. Number two, the manifesto from any airline that comes into Nigeria, we do have that. And number three, after Ebola, you have to remember that Nigeria did write the playbook on how you track individuals from Agent Zero to the extended cases of that has been very well documented. There's a wonderful organization up in Kano called eHealth that has designed the geosystems around that to make sure it happens. So we do have the systematic situation in place, which is why the Ministry of Health is not panicking, because we do have a very robust system of handling outbreaks and pandemics. So if there's one thing I'll give Nigeria, it is that. And what's funny is that we actually replicated this particular system to the World Health Organizations and other elements as well to make sure they follow that particular playbook, and that's what actually eradicated or controlled Ebola in other West African nations. So it's funny whenever I say this, people always look at me with a twisted eye, but I do have every confidence in Nigeria to be able to handle it.
Thank you very much for stating that, Waji, and we mustn't forget so soon.
Exactly.
I would like to direct people to the Lagos Talks 901 special we had on Wednesday. We had a very robust conversation around coronavirus and ways symptoms to watch out for, what to do, precautions. It's on our YouTube page. We had Dr. Nesochi with us in the studio, and we spoke about that. So in terms of raising awareness, we have done quite a bit of work. I'd also say that the way that the Lagos state government has responded, they didn't try to shroud this in secrecy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They sent out circulars, the information.
Immediately,
We have to really commend them.
So I'm sorry, Mr. C. I just want us to be very, very unbiased with this because I know it's a.
I'm not attacking.
I'm not accusing you.
Okay, but
I'm not accusing you. I'm just saying because one thing I've been hearing all night is, this is it for Nigeria. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Someone just sent me a text. I need to read this out to everyone. I'm so sorry. Where it says the state epidemiologist and the NCDC will do contact tracing for everyone on that plane and everywhere he has been. And this came from Dr. Aisha Kingube, who works at one of the hospitals here in Nigeria, a very well-known doctor. So thank you for that information. So,
Yes.
so once again, when it comes to tracking these things, I just want, because of the questions you asked,
Yes.
the answer is yes to everything, Mrs.
Yes.
So I just wanted to put that in before people spiral into something that is not objective.
so I just want to add one more thing. Yeah, kudos to Lagos State government.
Mhm.
They've done very well in identifying this guy. And in addition to what they've done so far, can they also begin to check who else came in from Italy on or around this period, and countries where the virus has gotten to?
Yes.
I trust that they're doing all these things. I trust that they're doing all. It's just
Exactly.
to remind them that continue to be on the lookout
Yeah.
for people coming from these places.
We got
love that,
messages
yeah.
here. This is from, let me see now. Yemi said, gosh, this is sad. Nigeria did well with containing Ebola, but it's sad that we are reactive rather than proactive. It's everywhere in the news. Oh, well, why did let's just mention that Italy had some cases. The right thing to do is to check every traveler before they come into the country. This could have easily been avoided. Now, all the people on that plane, okay, now this message is spiraling.
Yeah.
But
Well, just to correct this, because this is the biggest topic at the moment,
Mhm.
we had in the conversation on Wednesday, we were informed, because she had also just traveled, that you actually fill a form when you
Yes.
arrive, and Nigerians complained about it, but they'll track where you have been to so that they can flag off if you've been to any country where coronavirus is present. Another thing they did was that you had to leave your address so that they could also contact you in case of a situation.
Listen to this. Vincent here is saying, coming into Nigeria, all they had to do was fill a form and you go, even if you came in from Italy. The question
That's
people
not
are
true.
asking. Well, the question people are asking was, would that suffice? If you, I mean, and are people really truthful when they're filling these forms regarding where is that they might be going or coming
No,
from?
but that's not all that's done at the point that you arrive. At the point that you arrive, and this has been going on even before you came to Nigeria, was that you are scanned using point critical. And this form is at least, you having some information that they'll use for contact tracing. That's the point I'm trying to make. And at least it's passenger information flight, not necessarily any further detail than that. Okay, so I just want to make that clear because I think we want to put a lot of faith in our system here.
Yeah. And Solomon Makoka says, have you seen how China disinfects her citizens? Also, don't believe everything you see on social media. We had the whole time in the world to prepare for this situation, but typically nonchalance by those at the entry points made this possible. However, like Waji, I'm confident we'll address this effectively. We even have it's tongue-in-cheek comments about chloroquine, but
For me, I see that you're.
Oh yes, there's the question about testing at the airport. Let's not forget that you can carry the virus and not show symptoms for a while. So it's there's nothing we could use but temperature to, except we're now saying let's begin to test everybody's blood before we allow them
tedious
pass.
process.
Yes, but the truth of the matter is the symptom can lay dormant
Exactly.
until you
That's what
pass.
you
So
said,
there's that.
another nationwide. So Saudi Arabia was reported this morning have suspended issuing pilgrim. So you cannot go on pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia at the moment. A number of sports in March,
Okay.
have been suspended. For some of them, they wouldn't have an audience place, so it'd be a closed match. So
Japan's closed on
yeah,
schools.
so there are many things that are being done. We need to be aware so that we don't spread panic. We need to be aware of what's going on and the measures that have been put in place.
All right. Well, this is a big topic. We can continue that conversation. Hashtag freshly press 91 up on Twitter. Let's move on now to our next daily. This is from the Daily Times. Senate proposes stiff sanctions for gas flaring as Nigeria loses 217 billion annually. This is going to you for me. So apparently, the gas flaring prohibition and punishment bill for 2020 it's passed its second reading. And in that bill, I think it's a furtherance from the last one, where if you do engage in gas flaring, whether you're a person or establishment, you would be liable to paying the exact cost of gas at the international market. But for me, let's hear the story.
Okay, yeah. So this is an issue we've been trying to tackle for a long time, but unfortunately, our last act on it is the 1999 Act, and the penalty for gas flaring is 10 naira per 1,000 SCF, which I mean,
I'll just pay it and
exactly.
flare gas.
You just pay it and flare gas. And when we beyond the economic losses that we're making, we're losing by gas flaring, we don't talk so much about the environmental impact. I mean, last year this black soot that covered Port Harcourt and other.
Oh, it's a yearly thing. It's not just last year.
Exactly, but after we made some noise about it, I mean, it was on the dailies for some time last year, and then it becomes normal again because nobody's doing anything about it. So the environmental degradation, health challenges, beyond just the economic impact on what we're losing, it's something that we really have to deal with. And whether we like it or not, like you said, it's a lot easier to flare gas if it's cheaper than actually getting the infrastructure to capture and utilize it. And so until we really do have penalties that will make these oil companies rather indeed build the infrastructure, well, nothing will be done. Naturally, they will take the easier way out, which is
option.
the cheaper option, which is to flare gas. And it's amazing because we do need gas. That's the amazing thing. So we waste something that we really do need. Power is something that we're still struggling with, and we know how much how other nations are using gas as a viable option to generate power. So so beyond just the stiff penalties, they would also complain about creating the right environment for them to be able to generate adequate revenue from this as well. So yes, let's hope that we get it this time, because this is something that has been in the works for years and years.
It's dragged on for a bit too long now, and you'd think that with the rate at which gas is being flared and the penalty that perhaps they've been paying through, that this would have been something that it would have looked into
a
much
lot
earlier.
faster.
Exactly.
Yes, but better late than never. That's what it is.
All right, thank you for me.
Are we reading Richmond's text here? Richmond says, "Good morning, guys. In one of the telecommunications operators where I work with Chinese nationals, all staff entering the premises are checked with thermometers, but only every Monday. But I will advise to be stepped up to every day, and also all offices should start checking temperature of people and also report immediately. I think it's on us to actually do this. Every business out there, much like what it was during the Ebola period. I think this would be this is a safe route to go."
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Waji, I'll come to you for this next one. Federal government makes a U-turn, admits Boko Haram targeting Christians. According to this report, the federal government yesterday admitted that members of the dreaded Boko Haram sect, anti-swap, have changed tactics. They said they decided to be targeting Christians and Christian communities. Initially, it seemed like propaganda when the Christian Association of Nigeria had brought this up. They held a protest march at some point, and the federal government had denied this. However, they seem to pay more attention to this and looking for ways to address it. Please take us through the story from the Punch newspaper.
Okay, this is a very, very sensitive topic, and it needs to be handled and articulated with a lot of care and tact. And the reason why is this. First and foremost, Boko Haram is attacking Nigerians. End of story. I could care less whether you believe in God, whether you don't believe in God. No human being should be subjected to terrorism. End of story. That's number one. However, what Buhari was speaking from, I think it was misinterpreted, because that was the context with which he was referring to. Because if you look at the statistics of people who have died from Boko Haram attacks, they are actually more Muslims than they are of any other particular religious group. So I think that's where Buhari was coming from, and that was misinterpreted with him trying to portray from a statistics point of view.
Yeah.
You can't say they are targeting Christians when more Muslims are dying. That's point number 2. However, Boko Haram, as part of their campaign, will specifically target groups to create this chaos and this atmosphere, this euphoria, that it is going against the Christian group to now further inflame the situation as it may be to create further problems. All right.
Yeah.
So what now needs to happen is that groups such as CAN need to be, and Ohaneze, who have been quoted in this article, need to be very, very careful with their response to not make it look like they are specifically targeting these groups without understanding the context behind what Boko Haram is doing. Because if you follow that particular route, that narrative, it now becomes a religious war. It now becomes an ethnic war,
Which was what people,
which is what people
feared,
are pushing and fearing. Whereas that is not what they're doing. Terror is terror. It really, at some point, has nothing to do with your religion. I just want to see the world burn.
And do you
Some
think
people
it
just
was-
have a scorched earth mentality, and that's just what they want to do.
Was it good then that the Minister of Information and Culture alluded to this?
I will give Lai
Lai
Mohammed
Mohammed.
top points for that, because I think he handled the response to that particular claim very well, where he did say that they are using tactics to target these individuals, but these are the reasons why they are doing it. So it was a wonderfully put together statement that he made to indicate that, yes, I will admit that Christians and Christian religious groups are being targeted, but these are the reasons why, not because it's some
Christians.
religious war. Is to create the atmosphere to make people think that this is what it's all about. So I implore people to be very, very careful in their interpretation of what's being said.
Thank you very much.
All right, this message here, I think from Agina from Marina, says the idea of granting amnesty to Boko Haram members is a breach of trust between Nigeria and 3 other countries that are involved in this fight against terrorism. I think we have a story on that
Yeah,
one.
we're going
You
there.
jumped the gun, but I'll finish the story. Chad recently executed captured Boko Haram, and we choose to pardon them and send them abroad out of the 4 countries involved in this war. Nigeria is the only country where the attack has intensified, and this is because the northern elites choose to play politics with Boko Haram. That's Agina's opinion. But let's get into the story. I guess we might as well just jump into it.
So, Mr. C, I'll come to you. Repentant terrorists to enjoy foreign education.
It's Agina's opinion. But let's get into the story. I guess we might as well just jump into it.
So, Mr. C, I'll come to you. Repentant terrorists to enjoy foreign education, according to the Senate bill. We talked about this earlier this week. I don't know if you listened. But according to this report from the Punch newspaper, the proposed National Agency for the Education, Rehabilitation, De-radicalization, and Integration of Repentant Insurgents in Nigeria will get its funding from the Universal Basic Education Commission and the Tertiary Education Trust Fund. Now, beyond that, they're talking about the fact that they're going to, there's certain things they will enjoy, one of which is that they will fund education up to sending them abroad to get further knowledge and be educated. Please go through the story.
So, quick background. Senator Ibrahim Gaidam is the senator sponsoring this bill,
Yeah.
and he's proposing that national agency be set up to educate, rehabilitate, de-radicalize, and integrate repentant insurgents in Nigeria. And as part of his the proposed bill, specifically with regards to funding, that the 6 states that form the Northeast, that is Borno, Bauchi, Yobe, Adamawa, Taraba, and Gombe, will contribute 0.5% of their federal allocation at source, which will be deducted at source. The federal government will provide an annual subvention, and then 1% of the TET fund and 1% of the Universal Basic Education Fund will be provided to fund this proposed agency if it's established by law. Now, the TET fund is a fund that was set up wherein all registered companies in Nigeria contribute 2% of their profits to fund education in Nigeria. Now, first things first, who is a repentant terrorist? It's a valid question.
Yes,
True.
It is a very valid question. How do you
How do you measure?
arrive? How do you decide a terrorist is repentant? That's one.
What are the indices?
Thank you. 2, why is he in section 5 of the proposed bill? It reads, the agency shall implement programs geared towards the rehabilitation of beneficiaries, engage the services of offshore and Nigerian institutions in the pursuit of the educational needs of the ex-agitators. Now, first of all, what these insurgents need, if they're truly repentant, you first need to reorientate their minds. They need psychological counseling. That will take time. Educational needs come second. You need to bring them back to normalcy because they've lived in a state of chaos and confusion.
And they've been radicalized.
They've been seriously radicalized. And until you reverse what has been done, there's no point educating them.
All right. Thank you very much. So from D says that D had reacted to the gas flaring, saying we already have a law in existence, and why can't we just enforce that for the gas flaring? But then goes on to talk about rehabilitation of Boko Haram, saying we have a bribe approach to every difficulty in Nigeria. If only we could bribe coronavirus.
D, come on, not the time. This one here, Joe says, the notwithstanding, as president, you should not make reference to Muslim deaths, he says, when Christians are getting killed. Neither should you make reference to Christian deaths when Muslims are getting killed. It is inappropriate, he says. So I think you missed a couple of words here. I can't exactly tell what it is you're trying to say. But yeah, we get the idea. Thank you very much, Joe. Let's move on now. This day newspaper here, House investigates extortion by law enforcement agents at Lagos ports. Now, the House of Representatives has commenced investigation into the activities of ongoing at the Apapa ports, alleged unlawful and unwarranted extortions of port users by law enforcement. I hear a lot of people who are in Apapa now shouting, "What do you mean alleged?" Because it would seem that this is exactly what they're going through. And
Yeah.
if you've ever been to Apapa, even if you are just a casual bystander, you would see that this doesn't just start from the ports itself. It starts from kilometers way before the ports, where people are extorted or allegedly extorted before their containers are allowed to either move or get into certain places or regions where they can be granted access to the port. So it's a humongous ecosystem that goes an industry that they say goes from customs to naval officers to the police, and even the LASMA people, even just before the war. Now this is alleged. I will want to put it out there once again after saying that. But let's see.
Let's be safe, right, Mazino?
Yes, please.
Allegations. Well, wait, this is another better late than never story, because I mean it's been years in the works. We had. Was it about 2 or 3 years ago? We had the presidential task force team that was
every end of the year we have a task force team that
is
is actually
supposed
assigned
to deal with this issue, and I don't know. So the House of Representatives want to start their own investigations.
Everybody's breathing out heavily.
Is, like, people are rolling their eyes because, like you said, it's the allegations, but they are.
I'm sorry. This is not an allegation.
Where
These things, trust me, I used to live in Apapa, and I belong to a WhatsApp group, and these things are highly documented and detailed every single day. This ecosystem is real and it exists, and they're not hiding it. Okay? And if anybody wants to verify it, just get in your car and drive through Ijora up that bridge.
Just start from Mile 2.
And you will see it. So there's nothing. Let's not banter behind the words, and let's just be very upfront. It is real and it's happening. Okay, it's not. It's
but you know how we like to investigate, and that's the problem. The fact that we are just.
How long will investigation take?
We've been investigating for a long time.
Well, we're continuing to investigate.
I got jokes this morning.
So I think right now, that's why everybody is rolling their eyes. We're looking beyond investigation. Just fix it.
Action.
Fix it.
All right. Z-Man on Twitter says, so repentant foreign combatants have come to Buhari to enjoy not just the freedom but also taxpayer-funded foreign education. Who did we offend, please? And then on gas flaring, he says, which gas flaring which pollutes the environment is just wickedness and evil. We need this gas for electricity we don't have, so that the big wigs can import generators, which further degrades the environment. Wow. Now, talking about the environment, Waji, the federal government, governors have agreed to plant 25 million trees. Kumi is laughing. She doesn't know it's a very serious thing. Now, this is in line with President Buhari's pledge. Well, this pledge is in line with Nigeria's commitment to its obligation under the Paris Agreement. climate change is real. Why did you say that?
Well, I believe it when I see it. And that's just the end of the story. This warning with regards to what we need to do to combat desert encroachment into northern Nigeria has been the playbook and the blueprint for the last 25 years. And the recommendations from every NGO and every organization that knows about these things and other countries that have gone through taking these measures have recommended highly to Nigeria what you need to do to combat these particular aspects of the globalization, the climate change and everything else. But we just haven't done it. Niger have done it. If you look at a particular Google Maps, you will see that in northern Nigeria on the border between Nigeria and Niger, especially in Katsina, you will see green forestation, and then you see desert on the part of Nigeria. Why? Because Niger have planted trees, we have not. Okay, so all talk again, no action. Investigations, bold statements, nothing serious. So I'm tired of hearing your words and your platitudes. I'll believe it when I see it, and that's just it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's yes, to the point. We got messages here, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Chibuza from Yaba says, repentant terrorists? What? Boko Haram simply means Western education is forbidden. He should think of something different to do with these people, like psychiatric care, perhaps. They kill people for God's sakes, he exclaims.
Right, people have a lot to say on repentant Boko Haram. In my view, if I repented Boko Haram, giving them international education is allowing them to go higher in these. So, for instance, ISIS and so on.
Yeah, your opinion. Emmanuel here, and that's a long one, says the necessary questions are: what are the indices for measuring the repentance of radicalized individuals? Do we have any insights into how these individuals are radicalized in the first place? What is the basis for the de-radicalization process? Without answering question 2, how can 3 be achieved? Emmanuel from Ikeja is asking. I think he has some more to say. He says, if we know all this, why aren't there plans to nip it in the bud at source? Mwaji, final one, we're out of time, real quick.
Yeah, a lot of religious people in Nigeria are radicalized. The difference between them and Boko Haram is that Boko Haram have carried arms. That's what I'm going to say.
Mwaji, they praised you. I think you just...
I know.
We have to go now, but thank you so much. Mwaji is at the corporate MC on Twitter. Mr. C is at Mr. C on Twitter, and Fumi Odude is at Fumi Odude on Twitter. Barrister Fumi Odude, by the way. That's all we can take. Join us at 8:15 for the Locker Room 91, where Tega will be joining us and Topical for some sports analysis.
You couldn't resist, right?
You were blunt and to the point. Every single thing you said today is like, hey, this is it. Bullshit that.
No, but you're talking about radicalization. What happens in church? Are you serious?
No, radicalization is that you don't think, that they tell you that.
Yes.
Some of
I agree with you.
Yes.
I agree with you.
I agree with you. Serious?
I agree with you.
They don't think.
Oh, we are. Hey, I did.
My pastor says,
this is
don't.
not first.
My pastor says, don't. My pastor says, don't.
It's true. Oh my God.
They're not carrying on.
No.
My pastor said we shouldn't touch mango. My pastor said here, my wife.
My pastor says here, I'm going to marry.
Waju, that is relative.
Listen, I'm not religious at all, so I am completely unbiased.
Yeah.
So for me, Muslim, Christian, I don't care about none of that. My point is that it's all radicalization.
So then, parenting
is one is carrying
radicalization as well, because parenting is radicalization.
No, that's not radicalization.
You're reaching.
The reason I'm saying that is because it's your belief that you pass on to the next generation. It's what you do with that belief.
I
Ultimately,
agree. But let's not make it an Islamic thing, is my point.
But they're not. So radicalization has a negative connotation to it, because the whole point of it is to
if a pastor tells you,
pardon?
Eliminate
a certain group.
Yes, over another. Yes, so telling you. So if we're told in church that all Muslims are evil, if you see them shoot them,
sorry, but let me in there. But the fact is that this is what most churches actually do.
Yes.
No, they don't say Muslims are evil.
Well, the way religion is currently, the way
what I would agree that
what churches preach.
what I would agree that all religions do is put a certain supremacy of theirs over everybody else's.
That's supremacy.
No,
that's
exactly what you're saying. I agree.
Like
I agree.
We're white because we're white. Black people, we're better than.
No, that's what Orishans do.
That is radicalization.
That is not.
No, it's fine. But what's the difference, though?
There's no difference. You get me?
No.
If you're saying that this
I'm
is
better than these
that
people.
my religion, my
Better
path
than-
is the only way, you have inadvertently and somewhat directly said that anything else is rubbish.
No.
No.
My dear. It is the only way.
This is the only way to God. If you do not give your life to Christ, I feel
I'm
sorry
interested
for you.
in hearing
Without
what
saying you
Mr.
feel
I
sorry
want
for
to
you,
hear
give you
what Mr. C
choices.
Mr. C,
We don't
that
want
is the thing.
He's
It
gonna
is
give you
the only
A,
way
B, C,
to
D
God.
now.
We don't
As
say
in the way.
we don't.
believe
I
that.
know, but we don't. I don't now say. I don't now
It's not
say
because
that
of words.
because of you, because of that, you don't have a right to stay on the earth, or you don't have a right to enjoy
I
your
know
life.
that's not what's being said.
What is
My
being
point
said?
is that-
Islam, Christianity is our access to God. We project supremacy over our access to God, but we don't. It doesn't. We don't now say that way must be the established way for everybody on earth. For everybody to have peace on earth, that way must be the established way.
What I'm saying is that
At the beginning of time, funny enough, it probably was. I mean, when there was that whatever of church and state.
I understand perfectly what you're saying, but
Right.
here's my issue, and I think this is where Mazzino is going to. My point is, when you hear these narratives, and this is where the power of gospel comes in, right? The interpretation of those who are receiving
I'm
it
starting to enjoy
receive it in a way
It's
where
after
they
the show that they
sincerely
will show.
believe, right? That okay, I have received this word that indicates this is the way to go and everything else. So anything that deviates from this particular
If
perspective
you want to keep watching,
is what it is, which is why
thumbs up,
people
'cause
get
I'm about to
fanatical
stop
about
the
these things.
recording.
It's the interpretation of this particular
Yeah.
aspect, which is what I'm saying is how is the care with which you now say these words.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my issue.
Exactly.
With the care. When you use words like only, somebody's gonna take that like, okay, so
Yeah.
this is the only way.
To God,
If anything
not
else-
You can present an option.
No, you're missing
you
my
can
point.
Present to, wait. So
No,
when-
two options
so
are
the
not
difference-
presented. It's
no,
almost
wait.
impossible to
No,
present
but
two
Wadi,
options.
the difference is that I'm telling you this.
I would like to use-
Hold on. I'm telling you that this is
because
what
there's a
it is,
difference
right?
between
I'm not
even
holding a gun
Islam.
to your head and
There's a
saying
difference
that you must
between
accept it.
Islam and
You
Boko
still have
Haram.
free
Ayo,
will,
may
you
I
still have your
understand?
There's
choice.
even a difference
But I'm
between
not-
Islam
I'm not
and
arguing.
Boko Haram.
Let
There
me
is a
use
I'm not
difference.
arguing
let me use
what
an
you're saying.
example or an example that you would most likely be very aware of. Jesus himself,
Yeah.
when he came to preach,
Yeah.
how did he do it? Did he go about initially saying in people's faces that my way is just the way? He went about going to prostitutes and even dined with tax collectors and all of that, to the extent that people were like, how can you say that
Yeah,
you're from
God
my father
and
then you're doing this? But look at how he did it, is what I'm saying. Yes, it was his duty to say this
I'm
is the
the
only
way.
way.
Yeah.
But he was more Catholic than any other person would have done.
Catholic, you see,
Yes.
is not what
All
we don't
embracing-
have a Catholic church.
See, no, both of you are
My
going
point is the
different
way
ways.
he
Both of you
digested that
now you're
material and gave to
diverting. Now
people.
that you're
Now,
diverting.
at churches, they
Because
tell you, they tell you that
forget about our
this
churches.
one
The
is that,
concept of
No, but that's a
religion,
sweeping statement.
any
Some churches still
religion,
do the same thing
Ayo.
we're
the
talking about.
concept of
Can I-
religion
can I
is
just
that
state my
point.
Please,
This is where
why
I-
do you be stating your point? So let me
This
state
is
my
just,
point.
no, but you've stated, and I'm not disagreeing with you. This is just where I'm going. And once again, you know me, I don't have any religious practice. I'm not a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm just watching. So here's my points. When the white man brought Christianity to this part of Africa, because Christianity actually existed in Ethiopia 1,000 years before it even got to Europe, so I won't say Africa, so this part of Africa. What they did was to criminalize the spiritual faith systems that existed
At
before the
some
white man
point, it
came.
was
Because it was
radicalized.
part of,
yeah.
not radicalized, criminalized.
Yeah.
Because it was illegal for you to practice Ifa and all these other things. And I always say, why
It's
did
part of-
you,
yeah.
thank you, why did you criminalize these things? Because if you have to remember, our ancestors, you practice what you practice and you go about your way.
Yeah.
When the white man came and said, hey, that's your religion, that's you and your God, this is me and my God.
Yeah.
There was never that whole, I'm going to disagree with your perspective, this is just mine. But the minute you now begin to step into someone else's territory to now tell them that what you are practicing is wrong, and then you now hide it under statements as this is the only way, even though you're not coming to that individual to say you're wrong, but by you standing on a platform and saying this is the only way, you are leaving that conversation open to supremacy, which someone could interpret to say everyone else who doesn't believe what I'm
Yes,
believing
exactly.
is wrong. It's not as hard as if you don't practice, I'm going to blow your brains up. No, but it's the same fundamental principle. That's all I'm saying.
So would you agree, Waji?
That's
that
all I'm saying. It's the same
approach-
fundamental principle.
Yes, approach. Just and I like the point that my fellow colleague,
My goodness,
Magdalene
I-
brought to the table with regards to approach being a crucial factor.
I agree
And the truth
100%.
is that a number of those white people came here with a slave mentality.
Of course, they
Yeah.
came to
So
control,
yes,
take our
control,
resources.
take so.
Give us the Bible,
approach,
close your eyes, pray
unfortunately,
to
yes.
Jesus.
It was a political. It was more political than it was religious.
Yeah.
It was more
It
political.
was more greed.
Oh, well,
Yes,
Purely
and that
greed.
too.
Yeah.
Yes.
But some of them, the ones that are not celebrated, unfortunately, or the ones that don't come out, came in with
Who?
the missionaries that
Who?
came in. Some of the
They
missionaries.
were the agents of the British political
No,
system.
wait,
I
now they
don't
came
know.
in here.
I'm
with
sorry,
the
I
hospital-
can't.
They built schools,
Ion,
opened hospitals. That
You're
was how
speaking
they
to-
got.
in
You're speaking
terms
to the
of
wrong person.
They
radicalization,
gave you a mirror and then they beat your brother.
in
Yeah,
terms
gave
of
you hospital.
You're speaking
radicalization,
to the wrong person now,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
I think
can't.
every religion
Nope.
has it. Let's be Christian
No,
radicalists.
wait,
Yeah.
wait.
No, Mr. C, Mr. C, I want to hear Mr. C. I want to hear Mr. C. Please, Mr. C, please.
Okay, no, watch it. So
That's
No, but in
What
every
good- what good
religion
did
there
they do?
is.
No, I want to hear
There is
Mr. C.
That was good.
His
radicalization.
annotations are
they
out of
destroyed
this
the
world.
millennial of your own education and gave you their own education, and that's good. They destroyed your culture, destroyed your language, destroyed your own system
Waji,
of
can I say
society,
something?
and replaced with yours.
Waji, can I say
And that was
something?
good.
Oh,
Why
Ayo
can I
now,
say
let me
something?
Ayo wait. No, let
I
Mr.
say
C
this thing?
speak. We have
Let
5
me speak.
minutes.
Waji, so they brought education. Well, you went there to go and look for the
No,
education.
I didn't go there. I was taken there.
It was taken. No.
Do you see how the point?
Ayo!
Point of mine. I see like the star. That's why you almost counter.
Oh, geez, but Mr. C, real quick, please.
Yeah,
See, we're
Mr.
going
C,
to
sorry, gentlemen, I've talked over you. Sorry.
I think Mr. C is done.
After her points, there's no point.
There's no point.
Oh, was this what I did?
Yes, and that's the ironic thing about sending them abroad for Western education.
Yes, I actually discovered my Africanity abroad.
Okay.
It's so funny, yeah.
Which is true, yeah. Fella, all these guys discover their blackness abroad. That's the truth. Fella says it all
Alright,
the
we're
time.
going. Say bye-bye to everyone. Most people are still online. Bye, everyone on YouTube.
That's
Thank
the
you
best
so
post,
much.
freshly pressed
I'm
ever.
telling you.